press conference for the leader of the opposition to welcome to his office. We want to thank members in the media for coming to the office as he engages in his second conference. You will recall he had one earlier in the year. So many things have been happening in Barbados, but Comrade Torrance felt it was important that he engages these wise men from the press, and he's asked that we organize this one today. He's going to be touching on things that we know that he already anxious to hear. An environment where Barbados is hosting an international cricket game, in an environment where this morning we heard news of 2 more deaths, in an environment where there's confusion here, confusion there. So he's going to make some general statements, and then he will field some questions from the media. So what we do, Comrade Thorne.
Thank you. Thanks, Derek, and good morning, media. Good morning to all listeners and viewers. As Comrade Derek said, there are a number of issues touching and concerning life in Barbados today, but I will leave those questions to a very perceptive media. What I want to discuss today is something that has been asked of me for the past few months since I assumed the office of opposition leader. I was asked about the Public Accounts Committee, and I want to announce that that committee is finally constituted, and that we met on Monday for the first time, Monday, June 3rd, in the Senate Chamber of the Parliament. And under my chairmanship, of course, my chairmanship, as you know, is ex officio. I didn't appoint myself. The law appoints me as chairman. I feel that it is my duty to tell you who are the members of that committee. By law, there are 13 persons on that committee. Thus far, we have only 12, and we expect that within a matter of days, the 13th member of that committee will be appointed. As I said, I'm chairman ex officio as leader of the opposition in Barbados. Please let me introduce the other members of that Public Accounts Committee. There's follows: MP, Member of Parliament Marcia Cadell, Member of Parliament Corey Lane, Member of Parliament Edmund Hinkson, Member of Parliament Kerry Simmons, Member of Parliament Colin Jordan, and then the senators are as follows: Senator Lisa Cummins, Senator the Honorable Chad Blackman, Senator Gregory Nichols, Senator Crystal Drakes, Senator Ryan Walters, and Senator Tricia Watson. That's 12 in number. As I said, we expect that 13th person to be appointed within a matter of days. The members, apart from, as I said, I'm appointed by law, but the other members are appointed, the senators are appointed by the Senate, and the other members of the House are appointed by the House. So we met on Monday, June 3rd. I want to say to you that the Auditor General was present as well. You may wish to know, or you probably do know, but I'll tell you all the same, that the Auditor General is inextricably tied to the Public Accounts Committee. As you know, he is a creature of the Constitution. He is not under the control of any minister of government, any government department. The Auditor General holds that office in his own right under the Constitution, so he's not subject to the control of anyone. And the Auditor General oversees the audits. He does audits on government departments, and his work extends to statutory corporations as well. I will tell you what the Public Accounts Committee does. The public needs to be reminded of these things. The Public Accounts Committee examines the audited financial statements of government departments and statutory corporations. Those audited financial statements are done by the Auditor General. That is his mandate. He goes from government department to government department, and he audits the financial statements of those departments. You would have heard recently he tabled a report in Parliament. He sent a report to Parliament on housing, an aspect of housing. And one minister said that that shows the openness in government. It had nothing to do with government. It was the Auditor General doing his duty. And he sent that report to Parliament. And it was critical of government. and one minister was in self-congratulation. There's no self-congratulation here. That is the work of the Auditor General. He goes from department to department auditing government's financial activities. So he sends those reports to both houses of Parliament. And I want to say this to you. The Act says that we report after he has done his business. We then report to both houses of Parliament, and this is what the legislation says, with any comments it thinks fit, it be in the committee, so that we can report to both houses of Parliament, and we can make comments, and we can do investigations. Now, I want therefore to say to you that, and I want to promise Barbadians, that we, certainly under my chairmanship, I see the work of the Public Accounts Committee as inquiring into all government expenditures, which is something in which the public has a vested interest. The public must know how public monies are being spent. And therefore, that is the work we will carry out. We will do it by way of public hearings, because under the Act, the hearings are public, witnesses come and they give evidence, and just like the courts of law in Barbados, it is a public exercise. Yes, and I believe it is carried live, so that people cannot arbitrarily go around spending public monies unless they give account to this Public Accounts Committee, if we find that we are interested based on the public interest, that money should be properly expended at all times. And so I see our duty in relation to government spending as that to scrutinize, to analyze, to criticize where necessary, and to chastise where required. I see that as the role and function of this Public Accounts Committee, certainly under my chairmanship. I want to say to you as well, and I want to promise you, that the work of the Public Accounts Committee will not be held up by absences, whether deliberate or incidental. There are 13 of us. There will be 13 of us within a matter of days. There are 12 right now. A quorum is 5. And I want to promise the people of Barbados that we will be able to find 5 persons for every hearing. Obviously, if we have less than 5, we have to adjourn. And I will promise you this as well, that you will know about the absences, because again, this work will not be held up, as I said before, by absences, and absences that are not necessary. On every occasion that a member is in Barbados, unless he or she has an absolutely good excuse for absence, we expect that our work must be carried out with a full presence of the Public Accounts Committee. But the law allows a quorum of 5 persons, and Barbadians would be very disappointed if we cannot find 5 persons to do our investigations. So that first meeting was held. We did not have a full presence of persons. I wouldn't tell you who was present, but we did not have a full body of 12. But the Auditor General and his deputy were present. And I want to say to you that we expect that we are going to have a good relationship, as we need to have, with the Auditor General. As I said, the Auditor General is not under the control of any government minister, any ministry, any politician. The Auditor General is a creature of the Constitution, like the Director of Public Prosecutions. The Director of Public Prosecutions is not answerable to anybody in the exercise of her discretions. Similarly, the Auditor General is constituted, he's created by the Constitution of this country, and he has the freedom so to act. If he is auditing government spending, he must be given the freedom, the professional freedom to audit government spending. So we have adjourned for the 24th. I did not wish to have an adjournment that was too far in the future. So the 24th is going to be with us very shortly, God willing. And we will go back on the 24th. And I want to say to you quite openly, on the 24th, we expect to be setting our agenda. I cannot say to you that at the first meeting we have set our agenda of areas into which we will make inquiry. But I know the public has been discussing over the last few months possible areas that have attracted public attention. I want to say, by way of comment, that something happened last year. A statement was made last year by a member of the government. I'm not going to identify the member right now, but the subject was Sam Lords. And this was said quite glibly, and it caught my attention. It was said that, there were cost overruns of 40 million US. I think the figure was 40 million US. But we had discussions with the contractor, and we got the contractor to agree to take 20 million US. Now here it is, a project, the contractor sends his bill into government. He claims, or somebody claims, that it is $40 million US cost overrun. Now, as far as we are aware, a cost overrun are money spent in excess of the budget or in excess of the contractually agreed amounts. It means that you have spent $40 million more than you contractually agreed to spend. But you're saying, this is what I have spent. So that if the contract was for 100 million, you're saying I spent 140 million. That's a cost overrun. Now, it attracts one's attention because if you have spent $40 million more than you contracted or budgeted or agreed to spend, do you then say after that, oh, well, I agree to accept 20 million? Which contractor, which businessman agrees to sacrifice 20 million US dollars? And that was said, and Barbadians accepted it. Now, if you have a sharp ear and a sharp eye, it catches your attention. Which businessman spends 104, and I'm only using the figure 100 for the sake of convenience, but which businessman spends $40 million in excess of budget or agreed sums, sends his bill to government for the 40 million cost overrun, and then agrees to accept 20 million? In other words, he's accepting a loss of 20 million US dollars.
You saw it too.
20 million, 20 million. That is what Barbadians were told, and Barbadians sat back. And it was said, and nothing happened. This is why this Public Accounts Committee is here. Because statements like that, with the expectation that we will sit down and accept it, it does not make sense. It does not make business sense. Yes? And that is why this Public Accounts Committee needs to get active. Now, that is not a promise that we will be making inquiry into that Sam Lords statement. But there are other statements being made. There are other reasons for suspicion when it comes to government's declaration as to spending. Let us come to the whole housing project and housing generally. The Auditor General submitted a report on housing recently, I think in January. It was during the budget budget debate that we raised the matter of hope. $60 million spent, and not a man or a woman or a dog had moved into a house. For $60 million that came out of the Housing Credit Fund. and I think the figure of houses, the number of houses we gave was 131. 131 houses and a few others scattered about parts of the country for $60 million. Now, the Prime Minister, in the aftermath of the budget debate, promised Barbadians that an inquiry would be done. Now, I know that the Prime Minister spends a lot of time out of the country, and we are going to save her the trouble of an inquiry. If the public of Barbados believes that the Public Accounts Committee should initiate an investigation, so shall we do, and save the Prime Minister some time with her travels and so on. We are going to do it if the public believes that the whole housing project matter is deserving of an inquiry, a public inquiry, and we'll save her the time because it was Cabinet that approved the funds. Cabinet approved the payment of $60 million from the Housing Credit Fund to Hope. So what are you going to be doing? Is the Cabinet going to be investigating itself? No. We're going to save the Cabinet the trouble. And if Barbadians believe that this is right for investigation, we are going to pursue it. So that is the matter of the Hope housing project, which I think, I have to consult with my Public Accounts Committee, but and of course with the Auditor General of Barbados. But if the public believes, as the Prime Minister believes, the Prime Minister clearly believed that it was a matter ripe for inquiry. So we're going to join her in that regard, save her some trouble. And if the committee feels that it is worthy of an investigation, we are going to do that investigation. There's the additional matter of the Cricket World Cup spending. Now, we want to encourage Barbadians to support the ICC event. It's an ICC event, and we're hosting it on behalf of the ICC. It's a matter of some regret that the crowds have not been big, and it is not only a Barbados problem, but the crowds in Guyana have been quite small as well. I mean, we're the hurricane season and so on, the wet season. But we want to urge Barbadians to support it, to support the cricket. We think it's a worthy event. We want the taxi drivers and the vendors and the hoteliers to do well. I heard a report on the radio yesterday, and the taxi men were not terribly happy about the traffic, about the jobs they were getting. And everybody was speaking rather conservatively, and everybody was invoking God's name and hoping that things would turn better. There's the England-Australia game on this weekend, so we're hoping that things improve. While things may improve in terms of attendances at the ground, it seems that things have not improved in terms of public expenditures of public monies. Again, we've heard several conflicting statements about this 25 million US, 50 million Barbados dollars, how it is being spent. When it first came to public attention, we were told that the spending was on Kensington and for cricket development. That seemed to have exceeded the borders of Kensington, because again we were told that 5 million is going to Oistins. That's a different story. I'll address that presently. We were told that some went to the police cricket ground. Of course, the police cricket ground has been rejected by the ICC, so whatever monies have been spent there have been wasted on the ICC's project. But there is a lot of inconsistency in government's reports in relation to its spending. We do not know. We were told that the most expensive item of expenditure at Kensington was the $7 million for the lights. I think I am correct in saying that Parliament voted that $7 million to be spent on the lights. So the $50 million Barbados is still intact. That 7 million did not come out of the $50 million. So Barbadians need to ask, where has this $50 million gone? If the most expensive item at Kensington was the lights, you painted, you brush off the chairs, you swept, you upgraded the ground, but the admission has been made, $7 million was the highest expense. And then you go to Oistins, $5 million. I was in a parliamentary debate and I was interrupted on this issue of Oistins. And I was told by the person who interrupted me that the RFP, that is the bid, the bid document for Oistins was made, I think, on April 4th or 5th. The work on Oistins started a few days after April 4th or 5th. Yeah. So this is record time. People who know these things, it will catch their attention. A bid is made to the public, bid for the work on Oistins on the 4th or the 5th of April. Within a matter of days, the work starts. That certainly reflects on the authenticity of the bid. They call it an RFP, a request for proposal. So on April 5th, you send out an RFP, that is to say a bid. You're asking the public, bid for the Oistins job. And that job begins within a matter of days. Doesn't happen. Not with government. Everybody knows government is bureaucratic and things take time. But here we are. We became suspicious when within a matter of days, the Oistins work starts after a bid document goes into the media on April 4th or 5th. Something is wrong. Something becomes rotten in the state of Denmark. When work starts within a few days after a bid is advertised in the newspaper. So Barbadians become curious. And you drive through Oistins and the work is very ad hoc. They put on some verandas onto the kiosk. The tenants will have to tell you whether those verandas will affect the temperatures in the kitchen eventually, but that's another matter. Suffice it to say, we are happy that work has been done in Oistins. We're extremely happy that life has been made more comfortable, except that I drove by Oistins 2 Saturdays after a shower, and there's a large pool of water outside of Sheffet. That's the area between Sheffet and the boatyard. And it seems that the works have done something to flooding in Oistins. But casual observers are not satisfied that $5 million has been spent in Oistins. So there's nothing wrong with saying that. I think there's everything right with saying that we are happy for the people in the Bay Garden and Oistins. But as taxpayers, as citizens, we are not happy that the expenditures are dubious, that people do not believe that $5 million has been spent in Oistins. So what do? You give everybody a taint, and you give everybody a red taint, and you paint, you repaint the Bay Garden, and you paint it in red. Now, you don't have to be an architect. You don't have to be any art critic to know that you do not put red next to a beach. It is aesthetically ugly. You try to blend the area in with the marine environment, green. I don't even want to say blue, but try green. Try green. Try some aquamarine color. It is offensive. It is jarring. You drive by there after this press conference and tell me how it hits you. You cannot. No architect worth his salt of red next to a beach. It's ugly. So that in that way they have disadvantaged the people who are there. They have given them a product that is aesthetically not pleasing to the eye. They have diminished the Oistins product for the sake of partisan politics, and that needs to be said. It becomes like the mark of the beast. That a place that used to be pleasant, and in terms of its colors, in terms of its serene, in terms of its ambiance, flash this red in people's faces. Danger, perhaps. You're confronted with this red, and we all know what that is about. You cannot, and you must not, and government must not politicize every event. You begin to distress a government even further when a project of this nature has to become a partisan exercise. What are you doing to people? We have criticized this government for depriving people of their freedoms. Yes, there's artistic freedom, but this is not artistic freedom. This is a political machination against the people of Oistins. And that is a matter of some concern. You see, it all fits in with government's propagandistic efforts. Everything is about propaganda. Everything is about converting people. Everything is about converting people to the government's way of doing things. The concern I have as a Barbadian, propaganda is psychological violence. And when psychological violence or when propaganda fails, what's the next phase? I don't even want to mention it. Don't even want to mention it. So that the CWC spending is doubtful. We've heard Mr. Lynch. Barbadians do not believe, and I'm going to say this to the government and I'll say this to Mr. Lynch, Barbadians do not believe that $50 million has been expended on cricket and cricket development. Now, the Prime Minister held a town hall meeting for the branches of the BLP down there last week. A very successful Barbados Labour Party meeting of its various branches. It's a fact because we do know that 30 members of each constituency, I'll say that again, each constituency branch was asked and ordered to bring at least 30 people to Kensington. 30 direct by 30 is what, 900 people? It was very successful. I think they had more than 900 people. But it was a very successful Barbados Labour Party joint branch meeting. And I want to say this. I heard Mr. Garner speak, and I don't want to necessarily identify Mr. Garner as being a political figure, which he is not. But when he spoke, he talked about his beginnings at South Point. And he was very careful. He said, look, my cricket began, he's talking at Kensington, and I know the expectation, government's expectation was that Joel would have started saying what a beautiful facility it is. The Dunks man don't think so. The Dunks man says it looks just like the old Kensington that he knew. And here was Mr. Garner brought to augment government's effort at propaganda. And Mr. Garner went back to South Point. And he lamented that cricket and cricket development needs to focus on the villages. And that is the part of his speech that caught my attention. The young man Smith, he came and he talked about the need for cricket development to go into the schools. Nobody, in fact, Mr. Garner himself said, my career did not begin at Kensington. My career began in the village called South Point. And I know he was saying to the government that cricket development needs to get back into the villages. You don't need $50 million for cricket development, and you don't focus that $50 million on Kensington. So I listened to those speeches very carefully. Young Mr. Smith, pretty much the same, except that he focused on the schools. So that here were two former distinguished national cricketers seeking to encourage the government to refocus its cricket development initiatives and take it away from Kensington and take it where it is organic, where it begins in the schools and the villages. And I found that very interesting. What I also found interesting, another young man who addressed that branch meeting, he said, well, you know, he went through the list of things that they'd done. Had a hard time identifying anything that could come near to $50 million. But he said something very interesting. He said, well, you know, we've improved the facility to the point where we can have cricket one day and affect the next day. That's where Barbados is. Cricket one day and affect the next day. And we have complained over and over that this government is encouraging young people to believe that their ultimate social activity is affect. No, look. We support entertainment. We support the entertainment industry. We support the right of calypsonians, entertainers, musicians, singers, everybody to make a living in Barbados. It can be done. But at the same time, you cannot give the young people of this country the impression that their ultimate social activity is affect. I mean, what are you doing to the minds of young people? This country, I like to talk about its social ballast. That part of this country that it's like a ship on the seas. A ship does not tip over because it has a ballast, the weights in the bottom of the ship. And I have always seen the social institutions of this country as providing that social ballast, that thing that balances this country, that thing that gives this country its social stability. It's clubs, football, cricket, netball, it's churches. These are the institutions that have made Barbados stable, that has made Barbados a stable society. And I think this government has lost sight of that, and this government is moving away from that. And this government is encouraging young people to believe that their ultimate social exercise is affect. Nothing wrong with effect, nothing wrong with crop over, but it must not be your mainstream social activity. And that's what the young man said. Cricket one day and affect the next. So you don't know which is the priority for this government. Is it cricket or is it affect? And as I've said, every young person now in Barbados, a lot of young people have no regard for those old institutions that made this society stable. The cricket club, the football club, the church. I mean, the church is such an important institution in Barbados. And I don't want to become sentimental here, but it used to be a sacred moment there, weekends. Yep. All the churches used to be full, and we took it for granted. We say, well, that's just something that happens in Barbados on weekends. It's natural. On weekends, everybody just happens to be in a church. And the churches just happen to be full, but it was doing something for this country. It was providing this country not only with its stability, but with its value system. That's what it was doing for this country. And under this government, we are losing that social ballast. We are losing that sense of what is precious, what is sacred, what has made Barbadians who we are, that stability that we need in this country. So that Kensington now has been transformed from that sacred location that produced the likes of Sagari and Seymour Nursu. And Derek was telling me that today is the 100th birthday. This year is the 100th birthday of Sir Frank Worrell. He is on our $5 bill, is he? Barbadians need to know who their heroes are. This government has not reminded us of our moral values. And I know people think that that is a subject that is not fashionable, but this country needs to find its soul again. And every government initiative is disclosing or revealing that this government is into a kind of vulgar materialism, and that it has lost its soul, it has lost its sense of moral values. Our young people are adrift because this government tells them that if it isn't cricket, it's a fact. And there is no pause for social stability. There's no pause for associating with our institutions that create stability and create people who have a sense of moral values. So that is the CWC spending. I've listened to the call-in programs. A lot of people are concerned that the roads in urban Barbados, and urban would be Bridgetown, and suburban Christchurch and parts of St. James, perhaps, all of the arteries out of Kensington have been repaired. St. Thomas, of all places, they're complaining that Bridgefield cannot get repaired. St. Thomas, that has been so faithful and loyal to this government, they can't get Bridgefield done. So the question must be asked, for whom is this government functioning? Is it functioning in the interest of Barbadians, or is it functioning in the interest of people who will be here for 1 month? So that is that. But let me come back to the spending. We do not believe as an opposition party that government can justify its spending in relation to World Cup. And if the people of this country wish us to do so, we are going to pursue an investigation under the aegis of the Public Accounts Committee and look into this issue of World Cup spending. We are not happy that it has been done with propriety. We are not happy about that. And if the lights are the most expensive items, and if the lights were not included in the 50 million, tell us where that 50 million has gone. And if you try to convince Barbadians that $5 million have gone to Oistins, we do not believe you, government. We do not believe you. So tell us where this money has gone. Tell us that this $50 million could have done a lot, or 25 of the $50 million could have done a lot for poor Barbadians. It could have employed a lot of Barbadians. This $50 million could have done so much, but it is $50 million lost to this country, lost from this country. And if the people of Barbados wish us to, we will certainly ask the Public Accounts Committee to pursue that as a part of our legitimate right to investigate. Beg your pardon. Thanks, Calvin. Another area of concern, the marijuana industry. A few years ago, we went to Parliament with this initiative in marijuana. It culminated during the estimates this year when I asked the minister, I think it was, to give some financial accounting for the marijuana industry. Not one vial of marijuana product has been produced in Barbados, not one vial has been sold. The marijuana industry is dormant, and if it is not dormant, it is dead. We continue to spend money from month to month on an industry, on an administration, over an industry that is dormant or dead. During the estimates, I think we calculated that $15 million had been so far, up to March this year, spent on the marijuana industry that does not exist. Give an account to Barbadians. Government, give an account to Barbadians as to the status of an industry. Are there prospects for it? Have we missed the chance to develop a viable marijuana industry? For how much longer do we intend to spend money on this so-called marijuana industry that is non-existent? We have a CEO and a staff and everybody looking through a window when the mornings come and the evenings, and the industry is non-existent. For how long are we going to spend this money on a non-existent industry? For how long are we going to spend money on an industry that was headed by a person who was elevated? People don't normally get elevated for failure. But if the ministry did not get off the ground under the senator has been promoted into a ministry, I can only say that's reward for failure. Yes, it must be reward for failure. You preside over an industry that has failed and you're promoted to the Ministry of Culture and then replaced by another former senator to give her a chance to fail. So I don't know who will be the next person appointed in this lineage of failure, but the marijuana industry is failing, it has failed, and that's fine, but Barbadians are continuing to pay for it daily and weekly and monthly. And during the estimates, the sum calculated by me based on what they said was $15 million, and that is only if we accept what the government says. We have to accept their word that it is $15 million spent on nothing. We don't know what is the real figure. If the people of Barbados believe that some inquiry, some investigation needs to be made into this dormant or dead industry, as a public accounts committee, we may well ask the Auditor General, stillborn. We may well ask the Auditor General to give us a report on this industry. There's St. Vincent, there's Jamaica, there's Colorado, there are the Canadians. Their industry is off the ground, but failure, and we sugarcoat failure with a lot of talk. Mr. Lynch, a lot of talk. $100 million. I go back to the CWC, the cricket thing. He says this week, oh, it is going to make $100 million. And he says that with a smile. And he probably believes it, but Barbadians don't. The taxi men down there are not experiencing it. The vendors are not experiencing it. So we've been visited with a lot of petty talk, $100 million, and you can't get 10,000 people in a stadium that is now equipped to hold 18,000. But we hope that this weekend would be better. So those are the areas that are of some concern to us. As I said, we adjourned. We go back on the 24th of June. Hopefully we will have a full committee of 13 persons. And I want to promise Barbadians, they've asked, and it is a promise that we intend to keep, to get ahead with the work of the Public Accounts Committee, to have public hearings. Just as Parliament is broadcast publicly when people come to give evidence, to give account to this country, it is our money. It is the money that belongs to the public, and the public must hear firsthand how that money has been spent. So those hearings will be public. They'll be conducted on the precincts of Parliament. You can come and hear them, or you can watch it online. We intend to have public hearings. We intend to have fair hearings. We intend to have hearings that are open and transparent. And that is what we intend to do. As I've said, if I don't want to use the word boycott, but if all 13 persons cannot be present, I want to be able to promise you that we'll have 5. 5 is a quorum. And I will say this, the only thing that will stop us from having those hearings is if Parliament is dissolved and an election is called. So if they want to interrupt the work of the Public Accounts Committee, call the election so that we can't have the hearings. And I say that to give government a message that in spite of all that they think is happening, this Democratic Labour Party is preparing itself for an election. If this government wants to call an election 2.5 years into a 5-year term, let them do it. If this government wants to interrupt the work of the Public Accounts Committee by calling an election, let them do it. If this government wants to satisfy people that it has a progressive program for this country's development, and that after 2.5 or 3 years you're going to call an election again, call it and see what the people of Barbados have in store for you. We in this Democratic Labour Party, I am not shy about saying this, we are preparing ourselves. So let the government delude itself into believing that there's not a lot of work going on within this party. The people, as I said on the last occasion, and I say it here again, the issue within the Democratic Labour Party has national consequences, and it is a matter of national concern. And I assure the people of Barbados that we are responding by preparing ourselves not only to be a viable 69-year-old party, but to be a viable opposition and to be a viable alternative for government. So if the government wishes to stop the work of the PAC and to convince Barbadians that there's some compelling reason to call an election only after 2.5 years, let them do it. Go right ahead. Let them do it. We'll be ready. We will be ready. So they may have a dilemma. They may have a dilemma. Either you listen to the work and the hearings of the Public Accounts Committee, and if the government doesn't want the people to hear the Public Accounts Committee, they disturb it, disturb our work, dissolve Parliament and call an election. They have a nice dilemma, but I want to assure them, and I want to assure the people of Barbados, that the Democratic Labour Party will be ready when the election is called. If it is not called this year, and if it is not called early next year, the people of Barbados will hear the work of the Public Accounts Committee. So people of Barbados, choose. Do you want an election, an early election, a suspicious election, or do you want to hear how government has misspent your monies? And if you want to hear how government has misspent your monies, support this Public Accounts Committee as it inquires, as it investigates into government spending over the last few years. I think that is where we are with what we propose to do, and I invite questions from the media at this point. Thanks for being very patient, listeners. Thanks very, very much.
Opposition leader,
Mm-hmm.
you went at length to describe what you saw at Kensington Oval and the spending on the CWC. Thus far,
not to throw you off, Senator Walters was in a meeting, so he's now been able to join us. Thank you very much.
Thus far, what you have described is, somewhat on first impression and somewhat anecdotal.
In relation to CWC?
Yeah,
Cricket World Cup. Yes. It has to be, yes.
Yeah. Do you have anything in terms of tangible accounting that has come across your desk that you can point to that merits this investigation?
We can't. That is the duty of the Auditor General. The only person who can audit with authority is the Auditor General, Mr. Trotman. What we have heard, and it is not anecdotal because the figures we have got from government. Government told us that the lights cost 7 million. Government went to Parliament and voted for the 7 million. Government told us that Oistins cost 5 million. We didn't, so that's not us. That is what government has told us. I believe government may have told us that the police ground, the bathrooms that they fixed and the mold they put down was $175,000. So it's not anecdotal. It's not the substance of gossip or rumor. These are figures that were given to you, the media, by the government. And because we read your newspapers, that is where we got the information from. So thanks to you for giving us the information. Yes, Ms. Weeks. Welcome.
Most of the committee members that you made are from the government.
Yes.
I think about 9 of them.
Yes.
From the government. However, you're investigating the same government.
Yes.
My question is, how effective will the PAC be historically, it is said that it doesn't have much criticism.
Yes.
And so, you know, what kind of mechanisms or controls, what do you have to make it effective and give it to?
The fact that it is public. Let me go back to trials. In a criminal trial, you cannot try a man for a crime in private. The greater guarantee that justice is done is when it is done in public pressure. So we sit down here as the PAC, for example, and do a private hearing. Has no impact.
So the public
hearings, the fact that it is done in public, the public will hear the evidence being given. The public will get to observe the demeanor of the witnesses. The public will get to observe the nature of the questions coming from the government MPs. And I can promise you, it will get to observe the nature of the questions coming from us, myself and this gentleman to my left. And hopefully the independent senators as well. I think Miss Crystal Drake is one. So that the fact, Ms. Weeks, that it is public, is a means of controlling the process. And it almost guarantees justice in a sense. Whatever is the final decision, the public can say at the end, I saw it. And I saw that witness. And I heard those numbers. And I can judge. So there's a sense in which the public also becomes the judge. Because it is open and it is in public. And people are not foolish. People know when a fella is telling falsehoods. They know when a fella is prevaricating. They know when a fella is shifting and ducking and bobbing and weaving. They know because it will be done in public.
And just follow up, has this been done before, this strategy?
Oh yes, not strategy, it's the law. The law says that public. Yes, the law says that the proceedings shall be done in public. I suppose people are a little more excited now and they forget that it used to happen in the past. I don't know why they're so excited. I don't know if government is doing a little more things now or things a little differently, but there's a certain excitement and activity within the public domain. People now are very keen to scrutinize the government, and this PAC will offer them the opportunity to closely scrutinize this government. They'll be at a table sitting, and the man comes and sits where Mr. Mounsey is sitting, and he has to give his evidence. And Senator Walters will question him, and I will question him. And you may well observe that the government ministers may ask questions of a slightly different nature. And even that the public will get to judge. So the public doesn't have to wait for a formal verdict. The public will probably say, look, let's go to the polls based on what we saw during that hearing. And that's why I've challenged them. Call the election. If you want to disturb this work, call the election. Nice dilemma. Either you call the election and disturb our work, or hear how this PAC is going to function.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have two questions.
Yes, ma'am.
Earlier you said that the $40 million overrun
Yes.
will not necessarily be a part of your investigative project.
Well, Manny, I would invite you to write an article and persuade this PAC. But you heard the interview. You heard that interview, and you were as alarmed as I was. You see, there's a sense in which the PAC, under my chairmanship for sure, will respond to public interest and public demand and public requests. We cannot ignore a public that is asking us to do an inquiry. We cannot do that. So that if Mr. Joseph writes a compelling article, he may well find that the parliamentarians say, boy, you can't avoid Mr. Joseph.
I was asking what you said you're not.
No, I said we have not committed to doing, we haven't set an agenda as yet. I just reminded Barbadians of the burning issues. And that was one that caught my attention. It may not have caught the attention of other Barbadians, but it caught my attention. The question of a contractor accepting the loss of $20 million US. Where in the world does that happen? And I am glad that you are now convinced that that should be a matter for the PAC. I thank you for that. Perhaps you'll influence the PAC into putting that on the agenda.
I was just trying to find out why you are not. Well, you listed other things that you're likely to investigate, but you said that one is not one of the things that would be investigated.
Did I say that? Oh, well, perhaps I was inviting the media to do your own poll as to whether that's a matter right for investigation.
So as well.
It caught my attention. It did catch my attention. But Sam Lords was a government project, was it? I'm not sure.
Don't put money in anything.
Or they put money into it. Well, it's government expenditure. So it is a matter that can come under investigation. But Manny, if you think it should be investigated, I carry your message to the committee. Yes. The media in this country is very, very influential. They call you all the fourth estate. And it is the media that informs the public.
Even though
A misinformed public, a miseducated or uninformed public is not a good thing at all.
even though it's used conveniently, but nevertheless, the other thing is you say the LP is ready. You really think Barbados
Think so?
that?
I don't think any party is ready for an election. The BLP is not ready either.
What you say then? What did you say?
No. I said we will be ready. Well, we are ready with the election. It's not tomorrow. We will be ready. We will be ready. Let me amend that and say I was challenging the government that if they think that an early election called for two motives: to catch us in a state of unreadiness, they'll be wrong. And if it is done to interrupt the work of the PAC, we will be ready when it comes. What's the earliest date you can get an election? When it comes, Manny, trust me. When it comes, we'll be ready. We'll be ready. Look, we don't have a choice, you know. We are not ready today. We're not ready today.
Ready in a year's time? 2 years?
Why would we wait 2 years for an election?
No, I'm asking if you're ready.
If we will be ready in 2 years' time, 2 years, in 2 years' time, we might be the government.
Yeah, I have a question on. I'm guessing it's an obvious question, but I'm guessing I'm trying to get the soundbite correctly.
Soundbite.
Yeah,
I don't do soundbites, you know, Carl. I do substance.
You mentioned the time frame on which the what do you call it? For want of a better word, tendering process came out just a matter of
Days. The work started days after.
Are you at this point raising a general concern or just specific to this issue? Or are you raising a general concern to tendering process of projects?
General. Yes. There must be, and Oistins is the example of what we suspect is happening across the government service. That a lot of RFPs, a lot of what do you call them? A lot of proposals, really genuine. That one has to wonder if the contractor has not been chosen in advance of the bid document going into the newspaper. That is possible. And I say to you again, Calvin, if a bid document goes into the paper on April 5th and the work starts a week later, ask any experienced public officer. That does not happen. It has to go back to cabinet and contracts have to be prepared. And if you have 5 or 6, I mean, the process takes more than a matter of days. Yeah. And that is what raised our suspicion. It takes more than a matter of days. So that is a specific incident which raises the possibility that this thing is happening elsewhere across the government service. That people are being awarded contracts in advance of the RFP going into the newspaper. That is corruption, my friend. That's corruption.
Also, if we may switch gears quickly on the internal matters.
Yeah, I know.
You would have, since the court ruling, based on what I've been getting from my ears to the ground, having my ears to the ground, you've had a general council meeting. You've had.
We saw you all up there last night.
You've had a council meeting last night.
How you know all this?
As I said, my ears are to the ground. It is being said that there are some issues being trashed out as it relates to laptops containing.
You tell us. You tell us.
Files pertinent to the running of the party. Could you shed some light?
So you were saying, Calvin, that
No, I am
you
not saying anything.
I didn't hear.
Asking a question.
Ask your question directly.
First of all, could you verify the veracity of what I just brought to the fore
What did you bring to the fore again?
about the laptops being missing?
You're missing.
Yes.
Mhm.
And how does that, if that is true,
Mhm.
how does that affect the ability for the everyday functioning of the party, given the pertinent files such as members list
Mhm.
that would be
Critical.
critical to the
Mhm.
to the functioning party?
Last week I went to court, and I felt that as political leader, I had a political and moral obligation to be present. I had to be there. I mean, the party has been put in court. The political leader, so described, has to go. And I heard the Chief Justice, during the giving of his order, ask that nothing be done to disrupt the work of the party. Yeah, it is still before the court. We are going back on the 26th. So, Calvin, I am probably a little too experienced as a lawyer to make liberal comment as to the goings on while the matter is before the court. I could say something to you here now that may touch on concern or may impact the proceedings that will continue on the 26th. So I have a responsibility as a lawyer. I have a responsibility as party leader not to give too much disclosure while the matter is still before the court. But I thank you for the information, though. No, you know, the matter is, and it's before a Chief Justice. It's before a Chief Justice. And he would be very disappointed to hear that Thorne is down here in this building discussing with Mr. Mounsey goings on at George Street. When we have to come back to him on the 26th, I can't do that. I really cannot do that. I can't be in the court and down here with you talking about all the people's business.
But clearly it's still being discussed at an internal level, at some level.
Internally? How do you know that? You have somebody in there. No, seriously, we have to respect the court. We have to respect the authority of the court. And it is not a cop-out for me, but I've been doing the job for a little while, and I know the wrong in discussing a matter in public. Yes, sub judice. Discussing a matter in public while it's before a judge. I mean, you're depriving the judge of the right, his right of authority over the matter. That I come down here talking everything with you. You don't do it like that.
Put it in the press.
And put it in the press. I mean, you can carry something and deal with the consequences, but not from me. Not from me. But your question is related to Mr. Joseph's question. Nothing is going to stop us. And I want to say this to Mr. Joseph again. Nothing is going to stop us from being ready when the time comes. You can trust us, the three of us here on that. We will be ready.
The three of you be ready.
We, the DLC, will be ready. We are promising the people of Barbados, Mr. Emmanuel Joseph, that when the time comes, they will have an alternative choice against the BLP, that we are going to be a strong alternative choice for the people of this country. We don't have a choice. We have to be there, and we will be there. We will be there. Trust me on that. This is 69 years of an institution started by Mr. Barrow, and we are not going to betray him in his death. We are going to be ready, Mr. Joseph. We intend to be ready. And if you want me to tell you all the goings on, you want me to tell you some more? Yeah. We are interviewing candidates. You can write that. Look, we have a public responsibility to the people of this country. There are people in St. Lucie who are telling us, send somebody. We intend to send somebody money. We are going to send somebody to St. Lucie and to St. Joseph and to St. John and to all 5 parishes in Christchurch. All 30 constituencies will have candidates. I say that to the people of Barbados because we have a duty to serve the people of Barbados in the way that we've served them in the past. This party is too strong. This party is too proud. This party has too much of a sense of dignity to let down the people of Barbados in a future election. Manny, if it is called this year, we are going to be there. If it is called next year, Derek Allen will tell you we are going to be there. And we are working to be there. And I will give you something else to write. We've started a manifesto. Yes, we have started a manifesto. Send a message to the Barbados Labour Party. You really thinking that we sitting down here waiting to see what next is going to happen internally? No, we can't do that. And there are a lot of people in Barbados supporting us. That's why, as I said on the last occasion, they're upset with us because we're not behaving as if we want to win the thing. We want to win it not for ourselves, but we want to win it for Barbados. We won it in '61 and did the most significant thing ever done in this country: educated the young people. And that's why we have a country that we have now. National insurance. And the BLP did some good too.
So
the BLP did some good too. Over the years of democracy in Barbados, both parties have done some good. We want a chance to do some more good. And we are going to be there. We are going to be ready. And I repeat, we have been interviewing people as credible candidates, and we have started a manifesto because we have good people in this party who are presently scripting a manifesto for this country's future development.
So you eliminated the old guard from all the...
Old guard. You don't listen to my speeches. We are not interested in old guard nor new guard. We are taking fresh guard.
Fresh guard.
Fresh guard.
And all the branches, because you had a few branches that were not quite functioning, have those now been up and running at this point?
Look, that happens when you're in opposition. I mean, you've suffered 230 defeats, and people will be demoralized. I mean, we're not coming here to tell you lies. People will be demoralized, and some, like the marijuana industry, some branches will become dormant, but we're not going to let them die like the marijuana industry. We are going to revive them, and we are reviving them. And trust me, Calvin, there is a resurgence of interest in the Democratic Labour Party. I know what I'm telling you. There is a resurgence of interest.
In the interest of transparency, how many branches do you have that are
not
functioning or need to be revived?
Look, I held a meeting with the branches last week, Derek. Week before,
Yeah.
a Wednesday.
Went in at short notice.
And the only ones that did not come, as far as I'm aware, they did not know.
We had a representative.
Three?
Yeah.
Only 3 branches, for one reason or another, could not make it. Please send that message to the Barbados Labour Party. Let them fool themselves. They don't have a candidate in St. Thomas. You hold that against them?
Yeah, they have an MP.
They have an MP. She's on the rail. My good friend, she's on the rail.
They're gonna quit here, so.
These are young people you're interviewing.
Young
Young in terms of experience and so on, or age.
they're fit people.
Physical fit or mental.
Come on, man. We're going to have good candidates. We're going to have candidates that are truly representative of the Barbadian spirit and the Barbadian aspiration and a willingness to serve. Because under this government, the element of service has been lost in politics. Everybody wants to be a celebrity. Yeah, politics is not about celebrity status. Politics is about service. We've had a lot of politicians who have lived and died in this country and died poor. They died poor. And trust me, under my leadership, there will be no ambitions for wealth. Some of us too old now to start thinking about wealth anyhow. We are interested in service. The Democratic Labour Party and its candidates will be interested in serving the interests of the people of Barbados. We are not interested in wealth. We are not interested in borrowing $50 million and not giving account for it. Because I can say to you, Mr. Mounsey and Mr. Joseph, I would not be surprised if some of that $50 million, you're not going to sue me.
Final question for me. Basically, some of what you mentioned may fall under the ambit of the yet to be proclaimed integrity in public life legislation. The fact that it's yet to be proclaimed, how much of a concern?
It's a great concern. It's a great concern, but I tell you this, a few months ago when there was the issue of the check, $7,500 check, that had nothing to do with the fact that the integrity in public life legislation was not proclaimed. We have a Prevention of Corruption Act. which is alive, and I refer to this in the budget reply, that matter could have fallen under the scrutiny of the Prevention of Corruption Act. That if a person has done business with government, and if there's evidence of a financial relationship between the government and that contractor, that falls under the purview of the Prevention Against Corruption Act. You didn't have to wait for any integrity in public life legislation. You did not have to. But again, it is good. It is good. It is. We should have that legislation. But the absence of that legislation does not weaken the authority of the Director of Public Prosecutions to make inquiry into the question of that check. There's a law that deals with that. And it is wrong to say that there's no law that could have dealt with that. There is a law, prevention of corruption legislation.
What do you think the DPP should look at that?
She's a creature of the Constitution. That's her discretion. So what I think is not important, it is her discretion. She exercises it like the Auditor General. They have a discretion to exercise. I can't answer for them. But I can only tell you what is the structure, and there is a law that deals with that issue involving the check.
Oh, you found out that one.
I did? No, you know, Manny, it isn't what I think. You and I could think a lot of things. You want to know if I think the Director of Public Prosecutions should pursue it? I'm not going to answer that. I'm not going to answer that. I'm sorry.
I just asked.
I can tell you, she can. The law is there. The law is there. So what I think is not important, the law is there.
Therefore, we should disregard.
No, in relation to that, look, the law is there. The DPP is there. The evidence is there. The thing went to court. Where am I in relation to that? It is not my discretion. It is not my responsibility. It is not my thought that becomes important. It is the thought of the DPP that becomes important. I can't influence the thoughts of the DPP. It isn't ended. You're asking me questions. Would you ask the DPP that?
Yeah.
You would?
Yeah.
Well, I invite you to. Precisely. So whether I give you an answer or not, it doesn't affect. The DPP is the principal party. And she is the only person in this country who can initiate court proceedings or terminate court proceedings. She's the only person with that power. So whether I think she should or not, it's neither here nor there. It is a system. My thoughts have no bearing on her powers. That's what I was saying to you in other language. Yeah, thanks.
Read it again.
You want to say something? I could say something.
Thank you.
Senator Walters, you wanted to add anything? Yeah, could add it. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm not sure if you touched on the opposition leader on the situation of crime. You know, coincidentally, on the first time we had a press conference a few weeks ago, there were shootings just 2 days before in Christchurch. Where I think someone succumbed to those injuries. Last night, this morning, I woke up to pretty much WhatsApp messages where there were two different shootings and which resulted in murder. One very close to home and pretty much in the constituency of St. Michael Northwest in Freehill. And I know some of the persons that were involved as it relates to trying to get the person out of the hospital, etc. So it was a big deal this morning for the residents in those two districts, and I think we should offer our condolences to the families and friends of those who lost their lives, and to sympathize also with those in the community that have to endure such activity. I mean, essentially, you're talking about people who are just going about their normal business and who have now to be crowded into their homes at a specific time, etc. So we sympathize with those persons and residents in the communities as well, and we wish them well. But it brings into focus, and funny enough, I saw news reports that yesterday is the first year anniversary for the Barbados or the National Peace Program. So it really brings into focus what the relationship between the peace program and what is really happening in reality as it relates to crime. And we know that crime is a sensitive issue and social issue as well. So it must not be politicized in the manner in which some people may want to do it. But it still raises questions about the program and the success of the program. And I don't think that we should turn a blind eye to that reality. I am keen to hear from the minister from the perspective of what are the actual real results coming out of the program after a year. And it will be interesting also to see if there will be adjustments going forward, because obviously once you have an experience in something, you're able to do an assessment and then to make adjustments that will tweak it to make it better. The goal is they have touted that it will reduce crime. That is their position. Has it reduced crime? How has it reduced crime? And it is not fair enough to just come and say, oh, it has reduced crime, we're having less murders. There are a significant, and I don't want to raise alarm, but there are not a lot of significant increase in shootings that have not been reported in the press. And even in relation to the incidences last night, I am aware of other shootings that occurred around the same situation, right? And it's not to alarm those persons out there, no, but I mean, these are realities. So I think the time has come where we, is a year on, giving a proper report. Having a launch, I think the minister spoke on at a launch yesterday of a Learn to Swim program. He identified that there were 3 cohorts: the primary risk level, as he uses words, those are not involved in crime; the secondary risk level, those who are given a little trouble; and the tertiary risk level are persons actually involved in crime. What I have heard and what has been reported in the media substantially is the cohort of the primary and secondary. Those persons that are not involved or given trouble, to use the minister's word. And I think we now have to look at what has happened with those persons that are actually involved in crime, and what interventions have been put in place, and how successful has those interventions have been. And I think that is the crux of the matter, because 2 shootings last night, 2 persons dead.
Yes.
1 I am aware of in critical condition. I mean, we need a fuller report on a review on
the system. Yeah.
This one that dropped. Sorry. Yeah. So I think the time has come where that sort of analysis, because of the relationship that the government has placed with the peace program, and match it against solving crime. And that is the basis of the formation of the program. And it, again, are we spending our taxpayers' money wisely? We have a minister that is in charge of a peace program, but we have a slew of initiatives over the last 12 months that are geared to youth and youth development. And we have a Ministry of Youth Affairs. We have other associate bodies that deal and handle with youth affairs. We have a situation where the peace program itself has engaged charities and those persons that are involved in youthful activity in terms of developing youth. How are we using taxpayers' money to develop a system where we have a minister with all the requisite supports that comes with the minister and all the associated spend, where we can be utilizing those funds in a different way?
So you're saying essentially that there are crosshairs.
Yes, pretty much. Right, pretty much. Right,
Falling over each other.
Yeah. And one other issue raised with the program is that I don't think that we have seen enough programs surrounding females.
Excellent.
I don't believe we've seen a lot of programs surrounding the females in Barbados, and females play a very important role in our society. And over the years, we've seen also the inclusion of females into crime and being charged for crime, etc. So I think we are at the point now where there is enough information out there. There have been an experience of 12 months. It's still early days, but we want a program to be successful. We want the taxpayers' monies to be spent in a way that has a meaningful impact and is effective. So we're just asking genuinely these questions, and I'm sure that if a full evaluation would give Barbados some comfort that at least the government is going in the right direction, or they have to pull out stumps, etc.
Yes.
So that's my input.
Do you think
Thanks,
crime
Senator.
is a parochial thing or is it a national issue?
It maybe start parochial, but it becomes national.
So have you ever had any exchange with the government officials about working with them and having to solve the crime?
Well, we are here now, and we can definitely offer that support. What I would say, leader of opposition, you can tune in, is that we, as a political party, we are asked to collaborate on many issues, and I do not see the invitation has not been extended, as far as I am aware, of collaborating on crime or national peace program or initiatives, etc. But I believe that it is something that we would be open to. I mean, at the end of the day, we are representatives of persons within the communities.
Correct.
I was a candidate in the last election representing the constituency. I continue to represent that constituency. And I am faced with some of the same issues that the members of parliament are faced with, because we are called upon to intervene in a whole set of different situations as prospective candidates as well. And obviously, as a member of the Democratic Labour Party, who is a main political party on the island. So I think it's something that we will get involved. I leave it to the leader of opposition to the extent, but obviously the invitation has not been extended, at least not to this group.
I would like to just make a comment because I received, I received an invitation to a conference in Grenada next month to look at youth and guns. I sent information over to Mr. Clevister, the director of Youth Affairs, and asked him if he could make some young people available to the group to participate in the conference in Grenada next month. So even informally, we've been looking out for ways to see how we can help as well. And I have been part of the Commonwealth Youth Program's effort to deal with guns and violence across the Caribbean. So we are not sitting down and staying away from the matter. We are engaging our brains, developing thought processes and how we can respond to it. Only this week we were sitting down discussing how can we work out the program to help Barbadians to see the significance of guns. I was making the point that guns are distributed to people who have wealth to protect their property. Guns are distributed to people who have businesses. But if a man selling snow cones apply for a gun, he's unlikely to get one. And he's a businessman. And I find contradiction in that. The persons who are more at risk getting attacked for the 3 seconds that they work for will be told you don't qualify for a gun. But the persons who live in protected houses with big gates and security cameras can get one. My position is that nobody except the defense force and the police should have guns. And unless we get to that in our heads, we are not going to be able to deal with guns and property and those things. Because if I got a 2-door house, I still feel I got to protect myself the same way the man that got a 6-story mansion. And if we don't go, as a country, we don't realize that the issue is making guns accessible to people. Because if I can't get one through the legitimate sources, I will go and get one illegitimately. Because I have the same fear of protection for myself and my property as the man who got 2 motor cars and 6 doors and 5 houses. And that's the reality. I've been to the United Nations talking about guns and violence. I've been all across the Caribbean. And the problem is the same thing. Some people have a right to protect themselves and their property, others don't. And the ones who don't have that they get that right are the ones who go and do the illegal things. Because a guy needs to protect his property, whether it's marijuana, whether it's cocaine, or whether it is gasoline. If he has that right. So the idea is get rid of the guns. Period.
Thanks,
I get
Derek.
emotional about it.
Thanks, Derek. All right, that's it.
I just want to find out, because the word on the ground is that there is some fragmentation now in terms of your senatorial representation. We would have seen it on TV Live, with Ms. Watson dismissing sentiments that the party backs as for not being in alignment with them. There have been other rumblings on the ground that there may be some sparring there. So I'm just wondering what the position really and truly is.
You mean rumblings on the ground? I don't know of any rumblings. I don't know of the ground. We are here today as a team. Well, Senator, he was late too. He was late as well. He had other work to do, and I expect that she has other work to do. We're a team. We were there together. I beg your pardon? Nothing is forever. But we were there at the PAC together on Monday. Yeah. Don't worry about the rumblings, Miss Burke. That's it. Derek, you want to wrap up, please? Wrap up.
Okay. I'd like to thank all the members of the media for coming, and those who are hearing us live. Thanks for joining us. We continue to work hard to get not only to make the Democratic Labour Party strong, but to make Barbados strong. Our job is to give Barbados, for the present, a strong opposition, strong alternative, and to make Barbados generally people feel comfortable with that governance is on a positive shift. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Derek. Thanks, Brad. Thank you, media.